It is unfortunate what the film industry has come to recently. Hollywood has become more supportive of dirty political agendas than ever before. It's hard to watch a movie or TV show without noticing that it's contaminated with their dirty political ideas and agendas. And as for Netflix, it's no better. Sometimes they support deviants and sexually transformed individuals, and another dirty attempt to support pedophiles or child abusers, as in the movie Cuties. And of course, let's not forget about feminism and making all the strong characters in the story women in a vulgar way. When was a woman weak anyway? Dirty ideas, of course, but I'm always excited to know their upcoming agendas. Where to? And from one question to another, here it is, answering my questions with its upcoming series Queen Cleopatra. It is a historical series about the most famous Greek queen who ruled Egypt after the death of Alexander the Great. But what is the problem?
I do not think that the film that was made by Netflix about Cleopatra is fair. It is not fair at all, because it is not good to show Cleopatra as black. I will object also anyone who will make Cleopatra blonde, because Cleopatra was not black, Cleopatra was not blonde. Cleopatra was a very light, a Mediterranean, beautiful woman, and there is no evidence at all that Cleopatra was blonde or black, and therefore, in my opinion, Netflix is a changing history.
For a while now in Hollywood, campaigns and compliments have been directed towards people with dark skin. For example, Disney's upcoming film, The Little Mermaid, is a remake in the live-action style of series and films that were previously released in the 1990s and early 2000s. But with a slight change, the protagonist in their new film is the American singer and actress Halle Bailey, who will be black-skinned. Opinions are divided between supporters and opponents of her choice because the original character is a white-skinned mermaid. And many of the characters portrayed by black actors show that there is a political agenda behind it, just like forcing deviants into any film produced recently. And here they are repeating that scenario again in the series Cleopatra, where the actress Adele James will portray her, causing a lot of anger and resentment from Egyptians and those interested in ancient pharaonic history, because black was never the true color of Cleopatra.
This is a documentary. If you make a documentary, it has to be the truth. You invite scholars, archaeologists, to give their opinion about Cleopatra. No one, no archaeologist, can say at all that Cleopatra was black. And therefore, I really think if it's drama, if Netflix make a drama thing, they have the right to do what they want. But to write at the beginning of the film that this film has nothing to do with history. It is from the imagination of the film director or the film producer. Look at Cleopatra. We have many statues of Cleopatra. One at the Vatican, one at the Rosicrucian Museum. And I discovered one statue in my excavation in cooperation with Kathleen Martinez on the search of the tomb of Cleopatra inside a temple called Tabu Osiris Magna, located 35 kilometers west of Alexandria. We found a beautiful face of Cleopatra. We also discovered about 15 coins have the face and the name of Cleopatra. And we do have the famous scene of Cleopatra depicted on the facade of the temple of Hathor, the goddess of beauty and love in Dendra. If you look at the image of Cleopatra and the scenes, you will never see any features that can show Cleopatra black.
Is all this fuss about racism against dark-skinned people? Often, this trivial question is asked by people who do not understand the dimensions of the larger issue and the political agendas involved. Surely, it is not racism against dark-skinned people, otherwise we would not have loved the movie Black Panther, played by actor Chadwick Boseman, whose death saddened everyone. Or, for example, who could forget John Coffey, the giant black man with the innocent childlike mind in the movie The Green Mile, portrayed by American actor Michael Clarke Duncan. So, the issue is not about racism, but rather anyone who is aware criticized the upcoming Netflix work because of their full awareness of Afrocentrism, an intellectual model that essentially supports the superiority of the black African race, and that all the important achievements in human history were made by them, and that the origins of civilizations were African, including the great pharaonic Egyptian civilization. The African-American Molefi Kete Asante is considered the spiritual father of this intellectual term, as he was the first to formulate it in the 1980s. Asante believes that American and European colonialism contributed significantly to the disappearance of contributions from black Africans and to minimizing their achievements throughout history.
The reason that all of us are against this film, because the film is not following history. The film is making a false imagination about Cleopatra on history. Cleopatra was a Macedonian queen. If you look at all the queens and the princesses of Macedonian, no one really was black. Although at the same time, you can see the marriage of the Ptolemies. Ptolemies XII was the father. He had a son, Ptolemies XIII, and Cleopatra. Then there is no way that you can see Cleopatra as black at all. And can you imagine that Cleopatra, how can she capture the hearts of Caesar and Mark Antony? There is no way, if she was blonde, she will not capture the hearts, because there is many blonde women in Rome. If she was black, she would not capture his heart, because at that time, many blacks were not really from the family of Ptolemies. She has a beautiful Mediterranean face. The first time that when she met Caesar, to ask him to help her to be the queen of Egypt, and Caesar did make her the queen. And after that, he fell in love with her, and he married her, and had a son from her called the Caesarion. She went for 1 year to live in Rome. After Caesar was assassinated, she came back to Egypt. Mark Antony came to take the revenge from her, but actually, from the first moment they met in a boat, he fell in love with her, and he never went to Rome. And that time, he stayed in Egypt, and she took him on a cruise to see the marvelous civilization of Egypt. And after that, Octavius came to take the revenge from Cleopatra and Mark Antony. In the Actium battle, he defeated Mark Antony. And after that, that was the end of Cleopatra. Some people think that Cleopatra was buried beside her palace in a tomb under the water, but we do think that maybe she was buried inside this temple of Tammuz Magna that we're still searching right now. I really do not think that Netflix is really intended to do that. I think Netflix had a film made by the wife of Will Smith. She's the one that has an agenda. She's the one that she wants to prove that ancient Egypt were black, but this is not true. Because look at Egypt. Egypt was controlled and ruled on Dynasty 25, meaning at the end of the Egyptian history, by Kush Kingdom, the Black Kingdom. One dynasty. In that time, they made pyramids. And the pyramids are like hills. There is no way to compare the pyramids of Meroe to the pyramids of Egypt. means that this dynasty did not make the civilization of ancient Egypt. This dynasty has nothing to do with ancient Egypt.
There is no problem at all if we want to highlight African contributions throughout human history and showcase their strength. For example, we can talk about Queen Nzinga, the queen of the kingdoms of Ndongo and Matamba in what is now Angola. Queen Nzinga is mentioned as a fierce military leader who resisted Portuguese colonialism and fought to protect her people and their lands. We can take her as an example of the strength of women and the fierceness of Africans at the same time. Or we can talk about the most famous African activist, Nelson Mandela, who fought against apartheid and became the first black president of South Africa. But why do we mention prominent and successful African examples throughout history when we can distort and falsify history and attribute the Egyptian civilization and its achievements to black-skinned Africans? Stirring up controversy are the policies and agendas of the film industry in Hollywood and Netflix currently, and it is their favorite hobby that they love to do in their spare time.
And number two, the most important thing, that you look at all the scenes on the temples of the Old, the Middle, and the New Kingdom, and you see the Egyptian king is fighting the enemies. In front of him, a Nubian, a man from Africa, a Libyan, an Asiatic. Look at the faces of the Nubian or the faces of the African. They cannot look like the Egyptian king at all. The theory that made everyone to think that ancient Egypt was black civilization, it came through Sheikh Atatürk from Senegal. He announced it because he saw a statue of Ramses II, black, a statue of Tutankhamun, black, and he made a statement that the ancient Egyptians were black. UNESCO in 1970 made a conference to discuss that, and they said, we have no evidence to prove that the Egyptians were black. We have two theories about the origin of the ancient Egyptian. Some scholars believe that ancient Egypt was Semitic, means people came from Asia, and Hamitic, that people came from Africa. They based their theory, if you look today at how the people look in the Delta, they're very light. If you look at the people in Upper Egypt, they're dark, but not black. But there is another theory. A cemetery was found by Petrie, the father of Egyptology, in Akkada, a big large cemetery, and he did announce that this could be the people who made this civilization. What I want to say, that the origin of ancient Egypt were Egyptians. Again, I would like to say that Netflix made a big mistake by showing Cleopatra black, and I think they should write at the beginning of this film that this film is fiction. Zahi Hawass.